Well, welcome to the tiny room, everybody, to all our new viewers. Huge, huge, huge welcome. We have an awesome episode planned for today, and I'm really excited. I'm actually ecstatic that we have Norbert Elnar in the tiny room today, and we're going to get into some really awesome nuggets. So, I'm Lucinda Jane Valentine. I'm the owner and lead therapist at the Tiny Room Counseling and Therapy Practice. Norbert, welcome to the Tiny Room,
Thank you so much, Lucinda. It's good to be in the tiny room and the tiny screen.
all the way
But
from
yeah,
Berlin, Germany.
yes, I am currently living in Berlin, Germany. Although I am born and raised in the Philippines, but I have been living here for almost a year.
Oh my goodness, this is so awesome. I'm excited to get into some really amazing things with you today. And we were chatting, in the last couple of weeks, and you and I have that whole entrepreneur kind of like bone and skeleton and DNA within ourselves. And you are a business owner, and I would love for you to just kind of give a little bit of an intro as to what enterprise or empire you are building and how you have been a pivotal part of the support team at the Tiny Room. So go ahead, just give us a bit of background.
Wow, empire is such a big word, but yes, my name is Norbert Elnar. I am the founder and the chief creative officer of Masterpiece Kingdom Brands. So, what we do technically is we help uh, faith-based and values-driven businesses get their professional branding through a framework that we develop so that they become more impactful, more influential, and more profitable in whatever they're called to do. So, yeah, technically that's where I am, and I we got the privilege and honor to actually do the branding for the tiny room, which was a very amazing process. So from the very from the birth of the obviously the concept is with you, and then we developed it and we went through our process, and now here we are. So I'm also very proud to see and happy to see the tiny room thrive in all of uh, the media that's been showing.
I tell you, you have given the personality and the heart behind the Tiny Room in a brand or in a look and a feel. And I'm just so grateful for that, because a lot of people will say when they see our logo, when they see our branding, it is different. And I'm like, yes, that reflects us as, therapists, and our therapy framework and our therapy adventure, as we call it, is different. But just getting into another exciting part of your empire is you wrote a book. And if I remember correctly, your sister illustrated the book. And yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. So, back in 2020, when everybody was in a lockdown, I we were now let me get go back a little bit. So ever since I was uh in my younger years, I've always dreamed of writing a book, but in my head I would write it when I'm like really like old, because I felt like you if you need to I felt like when you're writing a book it needs to be like you have uh, a vast amount of experience. And I had a very specific book in mind. I actually wanted to do a interactive book for parents and children, and that was just a dream that I never knew that would come true sooner or later. So when we were all in lockdown, in intense lockdown, I actually read this book and I had an idea of like um, we are sorry. Let me rephrase that. When during the lockdown, I read something that talked about the negative script that children tend to believe the negative script that's being told to them more than the the truth that has been told by their parents or by their household. And that was a bit alarming to me because I remember in my own experience, I grew up in a Christian home, and it was a loving environment. But I also remember that as I grew older and society became more real, the negative script became louder and louder. And
Sure.
the tendency is you tend to believe it. And the
Yeah.
most crazy part is then you start acting like it. So
Mm-hmm.
in my head, I'm like, and I was reading this book that talked about that, and I was like, that's so true. So I was so moved, and we were all locked down, and my sister and my family was there. I was thinking like, you know what, I'm just so moved by this book. So let's create something now that will counteract a negative script in the future for my children in the future, for the generations to come. And it was just like a really desire from the heart. So I told my siblings, okay, my sister, I think we should do a children's book, and I don't think we will. This is the idea, and let's just see how it works. And so we try to write it, and then I wrote the manuscript, and I collaborated with my sister in making uh, the illustrations, how it should look like. And then my brother, actually, and my dad was able to made music out of it. So at the
Oh
end
my
of the book,
goodness.
there's a music sheet there that will lead you to a song on YouTube, and then you'll see the song. So that was it. And I even remember that I was writing the first draft of the manuscript while I was waiting for my dad at the parking lot of the hospital, because back then it was hectic. So he
Yeah.
went inside the hospital for a checkup, and I was left at the parking lot because I wasn't allowed to go in. So in my anxiety, I just really started to, like, you know what, I'm gonna make my time uh productive and make it like meaningful. So I tried. I That's when I wrote the first draft of it, and then a few months later, we were able to publish it, and it's called "I Am a Masterpiece."
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, it's beautiful. Oh
yeah.
my gosh. And then at the same time, I mean, fairly recently, you got it translated into German.
Yes, and that itself is a crazy story that I never expected. Like, I mean, one thing was for sure, I did not. English is not my first language, so writing a book in English was already a big step for me. And then when I moved in Germany last year, and because I got married here, my wife is from Germany. My lovely wife. Shout out to Sophie who's listening. And then, so obviously the book came in 2020, and then when you're here, we meet people, and then people discover that, oh, there's a book, and I'm like, yeah, we wrote a book, and we pretty much were very happy already with the story of how the book evolved from the in 2020. So when there is this publishing company here in Berlin, our friends from Auf Book Verlag, they saw the book in English, and they thought of like, hey, you might want to publish this one in German. And I'm like, for sure, like, go ahead. So they really did an amazing job. Uh, they Amelie Rick made the translation from the original English version into German, and we worked around it, and we've just recently published it, and it's called Ich bin
Oh my
ein
word, this is so
Meisterwerk.
cool. I can't wait to get stock of your book.
Okay.
Because in the near future, the tiny room's going to have a play therapist, and we're going to have our beautiful space for our play therapist. And we definitely, because play therapy is for about 9-year-olds and under, and we just don't have the capacity from a facilities point of view or a space point of view to have the size room for our play therapist. So we do grade fours and up at the moment. But I just can see your book on display, and the heart behind your book aligns so beautifully to our whole therapy adventure or process or framework, where we want each and every client, no matter their age, to know their personality in detail, because your personality doesn't change.
Yeah.
You know, your character changes, your behavior changes, and your skill set changes. Um, depending on, it can improve or it can diminish.
Yeah.
But at the same time, your personality stays consistent. But if you don't know it in detail, and like you said, if you don't know that you are a masterpiece, an original art piece,
Yeah.
because there's no two of you in this entire world, even if you are an identical twin, you have different personalities,
Yeah. Yeah.
different fingerprints, different patterns around the iris of your eyes, if you had to put that under a microscope. So biologically there's differences, but personalities individually are so unique. And I think your book just kind of shines the fun, the excitement, the color that the tiny room is all about. So I'm like, highlight this children's book, get this children's book. It is starting at that age already,
Yeah.
because we can get a lot of our tweens here, grade sixes, even before that, really. But even if you can get them grade 6 and 7, yeah, okay, obviously we in South Africa, so your schooling system's different in Europe, but grade sixes and sevens, we can already start being preventative with some mental health, um, almost like intervention, and kind of getting in
Mm,
there and sorting out a
mm.
couple of things, confusions, and giving them some perspective and clarity on who they are, as that original art piece or that masterpiece. And I'm like, yes, go Norbert.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. It's really a very inspiring, encouraging story for us because we did not write a book to get rich because I mean, we're not famous people, so no,
Yet,
it's
yet.
that's not the
We're famous
point.
for the right reasons, Norbert. We're going to be famous for the right reasons, to help others.
Yeah. So the story really has its own life, and we just want to like really thank everybody because I get comments from like pregnant women who's reading the book already to the child, to
Oh,
the unborn child, and like
oh,
it makes me like feel really, like it touches my heart. And then I've also received feedback that uh they used the book as a gift to children with special needs or
oh,
disabilities, and even
amazing.
even with like um even the parents. There was one video that was sent to me, and the parents said like, the dad was reading the book to a newly born child, and the dad never sang any lullaby, but he sang our song first to the child.
Yes.
Yeah, so it I was so moved that it actually gives people and the parents and the children interaction already from the get-go. And I think even adults are are giving me very amazing feedback. So yeah. And honestly, one thing that I did not expect is that there was one organization ordered our book in South Africa, and then they've distributed copies of the book in a soup kitchen in Dunoon. And
Oh,
I've,
come on.
and I've never even been there,
Oh
and
my gosh, Norbert, when you're back in Cape Town, I'll take you to the noon.
it was so heartwarming to see the leader, the African mama reading this
Oh,
entire piece to the
beautiful.
children, and they were just repeating it, and it was just like wow. And it melted my heart seeing that. So yeah.
But now that's the thing. I mean, those are the stories that we want to know. In the sense of when the tiny room sees so many tweens, teens, adults coming through our doors, because a lot of people seem to think we only cater or provide therapy to tweens and teens. We really don't. We've got people from all ages, just by the way. But those stories, every person comes in by our doors and sits in front of us with a story. But once they've gone through our 8 session therapy adventure or process, or journey, as we say, they have a story, another story to tell. And that's why reviews and feedback is for me so important, to hear not only the story or the narrative coming in, but after all of those sessions and seeing that shift. Because we don't say people need to change. People aren't, they're not, and they don't need to be fixed. They're not broken. They actually are already so amazing, but they don't know who they are in detail. And we want to highlight that. So we do a lot of unpacking, rebuilding, or rebooting, resetting, and then that clarity is there. So for me, therapy is not this weird clinical rigid thing. It's just gaining perspective. And that's where people are just lost. They haven't ever known themselves, or they've known themselves and then they've lost their way.
Yeah.
And it's like this slow fade that happens over time with life, you know,
That's
doing what
that's
life
that's
does, knocking us around, and just getting that perspective back. But you want Norbert perspective, you want Lucinda perspective, you don't want other people's perspective. So therapy, if done really well by a therapist that understands all aspect of a human's life, and not just mental, psychological, and just kind of sticking there in the head, thinky, as I always say, and actually understanding all the other areas, realities. We've been told a lot of the time we're very real, we're very humanistic, we're very real, and that it's comfortable, no
mm,
judgment. We hear that. So for me, feedback and those stories are what keeps us waking up in the mornings
yes,
because it's
that's true.
tough. I'm
Yeah.
dealing with tweens and teens that are self-harming and suicide, and for you to even hear, a mom reading that a children's book to her unborn child, that's so beautiful. But then my heart goes straight towards, moms that are struggling to have kids and
Yeah.
are probably buying those children's books thinking, okay, well, I'm going to have a kid and it's not happening. So we have a lot of, not a lot, but we've got women coming through with fertility issues and coming through our therapy process to deal with that. So we cover a lot of things, but
Wow.
it doesn't have to be so medical and so like sad and moody. That's what one client said to me. She
Mm,
said, I thought I was gonna sit here and be all sad and moody. And I was like, no. Yes, it's a serious line of work,
yeah, it is.
mental health, specializing in therapy and all the rest of it. So we get some hectic stuff coming through, but it's just doing life together. It's not a
Mm,
transaction, and it can be fun and exciting and colorful. But I think a lot of people think that we give therapy towards tweens and teens because the narrative, as you were saying right in the beginning, that negative narrative is therapy is only for crazy people.
yeah, that's
And it's
true.
not it's not about being the best version of yourself or really knowing who you are. And I love that you and I get to have these conversations now in this episode, because thinking about you newly married and what that was like for me, because this year I married 10 years. August
Oh,
I'm married 10 years.
congratulations.
Thank you. So it's kind of daunting to think, oh my word, I'm going to be married 10 years. It's kind of amazing, but also like, wow. But at the same time, you being newly married, knowing what my first 4 years was like, I could have done with a Lucinda. I could have done with someone doing life with me and like, it's going to be okay. This is really tough in the first 4 years. But at the same time, it's become awesome every single year after that. So speaking into that, Norbert, being a guy, the stigma with
Mm,
men and reaching out for help and mental health and therapy and all of that. South Africa, there's like this huge stigma and stereotype and almost like a mental block. Or maybe it is that negative narrative. I don't know.
mm,
And I agree with you. I read a book. I don't know if it's the same one that you read, but it's called The Art of Possibility, and they speak about the false narrative. And it's very similar to what you were saying if it wasn't that book that you read. But I agree. And that's what we undo here, is
yeah.
growing up with that negative false narrative. So, being a guy, I'm sure you've had some great support along the way. I'm sure you've had some mental health challenges along the way. And you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, a newly married man. Um, I don't know, just throw it out there. Like, what's your thoughts on all of that, kind of weaving it back to or bringing it back to mental health? And in the children's book, I mean, it's all a lot of stuff, but just in your thoughts there, throw it out there.
Wow. Wow. That's a okay.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to unpack, but I think I think in general, uh, because men are wired very differently with two women, and the fact that not I wouldn't say all, but not all men are really in tune with their emotions, right? And that's what I'm saying. That's what I've been saying, that we've made to believe a false narrative or a negative script from the very beginning on, that you know young men should not do this. You cannot do this. There's equally like unrealistic expectations for men all over, and
So good, so
and
true.
and when you become uh, a leader, when you become an entrepreneur, when you become more, when you more mature more, they are even more highlighted in certain sense. So I think I think in general, men really have a uh, I wouldn't want to make it as an excuse because we're wired differently that we get away with it. But I actually believe in the power of community, in the power of just being honest with how you feel, and obviously it's not like we're gonna go to another guy and just cry immediately and share our thoughts
Yeah.
and feelings,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the main the main fact that we acknowledge that something is not right
Yeah.
and being open to talk to somebody about it doesn't mean that it makes you less of a man.
Yeah.
And I think especially I'm even more encouraged that like in the current times these topics are being exposed more, and there's conversations around mental health with men,
Mhm.
and I've had friends who see therapists, and I've we have um we have that I would say like social acceptance that it is okay now, and I'm glad that it's happening. But also on the flip side, I would be more intentional as a guy in reaching out to other guys who are still stuck in that negative script that they believe in, because
Okay.
it really takes uh it really takes to be a man to admit that something is not going well.
Yeah.
And
Vulnerability is strength for me. Being
yes,
vulnerable is strength in that. Yeah,
I
that
I
shows
I, I
real
totally
strength.
agree. Vulnerability is like a superpower, but
Yeah.
sometimes because we're made to believe that it's not, then you feel like it's a weakness. Then, so and
It's
that's how,
another false narrative. Being
yeah, it's
vulnerable is being framed
as
as
weak.
weakness.
Yeah, it
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely false narrative, and it makes us human. It makes us real. It makes us, um, it levels the playing field. So I think, yeah, and true enough, and as an entrepreneur, you wear so many hats, right? Like
Hmm.
you just don't wear you're the operator, you're the creative, you're the this and this and this, and it can be overwhelming. And personally, I am so aware that I need to protect my own mental health,
So
that
good.
I just know when to stop, when to let it go, and when to just take a break,
Yeah.
because you can only do so much, you can only run for so long, and you're not productive anymore if you just keep on going the same thing. And i
Yeah.
think I think I just don't want to be at the point wherein I will just one day explode.
Yeah. Because I
And
mean, how does that help anybody? I mean, we're in the people business, you know. So even though you are creating the most amazing brands and helping large corporates, you know, build their empires, you're still working with people and you've got your team that is your responsibility. It's the same with us. People will be like, oh, you're a private therapy practice. I'm like, oh, you're a team of seven, you know. So I'm sitting in session eight, sometimes 9 hours a day. And then on top of that, still have to go do, like you said, operational,
yeah,
administrative, all
yeah,
that stuff. But we have, you know, our own personal lives to maintain. You know, we can't go give
yeah,
our spouses the least of us, you know. It's not fair. So, you know, we do have to maintain our mental health as business owners, you know, slash entrepreneurs. But the same with being in a relationship with someone else, giving them
the
your
quality
all.
time, yeah,
Yeah, and all
your
those
full
beautiful
attention,
things, you know,
yeah,
not the little corner of our minds, you know, type of thing, and our energy levels being low. So you have to have that balance. But you know, what concerns me is the suicide rate being so high in men.
oh,
And people don't realize when we say the word men, we actually mean young
young men.
boys. Yeah,
Mm-mm,
young men. And that, you know, men covers that whole age group, you know. And
mm-mm,
that's the thing. It's got tweens and teens, self-harming, suicidal, and it's a lot of the time in our young men, boys, and then obviously in our older men. And we're seeing that more and more, um, early 30s, you know, yeah, late 20s, early 30s, um, young professionals, you know, really
mm,
well to do, studied, you know, high up men that are self harming and are on the brink of, like you said, running
yeah,
to failure.
Yeah,
or they
and
already
and
believe.
and I think it's a huge problem worldwide, and I know that it's like a almost like a even worse than a pandemic, if you can say if you
Yeah,
can call it that.
yeah.
Um,
It's
but
very hush hush,
yeah,
and I just want to go shout it from the rooftops, like, come through, come to through the door into our arms. We are here. Be vulnerable. Reach out.
yeah, you probably need a bigger room now. No, that's not just a
Global,
tiny
I
room.
tell you, going global.
Yeah. So I think as in my own way, I also you just mentioned about like suicide in the younger generation, and I'm no expert in that, but I also know that for a fact that what we produce as content in like mainstream media and what the young people consume, the messaging that's been brought out there is also not helpful. It's so
Mm,
consumeristic. It's so it's just not the truth. If it is, it's like a twisted side of the truth. So
yeah,
that's why
yeah.
I think for me, as I feel responsible for, because I'm creating content. I'm in the business of like messaging and branding. I always encourage the brands to really remain true to the purpose that they're called to, because how, I say where are the good guys now? Like
Yeah,
everybody's just wanting a piece of the market and wanting just everybody just wants to sell stuff. And like,
yeah. It's a
and,
transaction. I
yeah,
always say
it's
that there's so many private practices that are just in it for the transaction and not to do life and build that community.
yeah, but it's meaningless. And I feel like we're not when you're moving without meaning, it's meaningless. Like
Wow.
what's the point? Like, so being intentional in the brands that we're helping and building, and being intentional with the content that we're creating, and you know just because there are people who are really vulnerable to the messages that they see.
Yeah.
And I mean, being here in Europe for the last for almost a year, I've seen various kinds of messaging, and I'm like, I do not know
Yeah. It's
how this will
concerning.
end.
It is
It's
concerning.
concerning. It's concerning.
Yeah.
So we don't want to add to the negative script already.
No, we want to
So
go in the other direction.
yeah, so that's why we're here, and that's why we do what we do, and we cannot do everything, but we can do something about
Oh,
it.
you're inspiring me, Norbert, because it's like, you want to fight the good fight. And I just think that I noticed recently on Instagram, and I was looking at so many, mental health platforms and like no one's speaking about self-harm and suicide on as a big thing. Like, why aren't we
It,
talking about
it
this?
has
This
become
is
so
actually
nor
happening.
it has become so normal. It's just my opinion. I feel like it has become so normal that nobody is like, okay, yeah, it's there. Like, what can you do? But
And no one realizes it's happening at
yeah,
such a young age.
yeah,
Like,
and
it's literally from 10, 11-year-olds upwards. So,
that's unacceptable. Like
yeah, it really isn't. Yeah, exactly. It
it's not
isn't
cool.
acceptable. It's like, no. So we feel like you said, we have a responsibility in our content. Now, speaking about content, by the way, um, I had the privilege of doing your masterpiece course. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to just chat about that real quick in our last few minutes together, about the course and just anything really that's on your mind in these closing moments on just, yeah, go for it.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so happy that the Tiny Room went through our Masterpiece Kingdom brand building course. It's it is a six pillar framework to help you identify, clarify, and propel your business or organization to so that it will become more influential, impactful, and profitable. So, you guys went through a whole process of uh, different elements of a healthy brand, and we discussed it thoroughly. And it's been you we're you have we had a we had a good session. We had a good we have worksheets for that. We have videos. We have resources to help uh, to help our entrepreneurs, our brand leaders, whoever is responsible for crafting the messaging, just to guide them and point them in the right direction so that it's more purposeful, it's more intentional, it has more meaning. Um, because I know we believe that your purpose is more important than the profit. But it doesn't mean that the profit is not important. Yes, we can you can really be more profitable in, but not to the expense of sacrificing your purpose,
It
because people,
shouldn't be what you do
yeah,
first. It
yeah,
really, the profit should not be your, well, for us to be
to
doing
operate
well.
and to grow,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
we need to, we need to earn, right? But it shouldn't be the, it shouldn't be the only thing we're after, and
yeah.
we treat, yeah. So this online course that we have is available at masterpiecebrands.com, so you can always check that out. And we've seen the brands been blessed by it, transformed by it. We've seen and I always feel like it's like a deliverance course for brands. They feel, after they feel like, oh, it's okay, we're doing, we're
That
gonna be
is
fine.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And
brilliant.
so that is it's in masterpiecebrands.com, so they can check it out. And I also wanted to share that in our desire as well to inspire more entrepreneurs and to help leaders with their mental health, we have to be uh, aligned in everything. So we're putting out some content starting June, and we have a,
Yes, talk about it. I've got it written here. Go
yeah.
for it, Norbert.
So
I'm excited about it.
we're launching a podcast called um, Making a Masterpiece, wherein we will share stories that uplift your spirit and help you grow your business. So we are going to talk to various leaders of different industries. You're going to be there. uh, um, we have people from all over the world sharing their stories and testimonies on how they started their brand, how they're leading their organization, what it feels to be a CEO, an executive, and a creative in doing purposeful work. And you know what? I have the first season is just fully amazing, and we've wrapped up our recording, and every time I walk and go home, and I'm just like shaking my head. I'm like, what was that conversation? It was so good. I Yeah, so I would love to encourage everybody, if you're looking for something that we're to inspire you in your journey as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, or if you just want to hear real stories that
Yeah,
will
good
really
stuff.
build up your
Exactly.
spirit,
Mm.
you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at masterpiece.tv, or it will be available in June, and you
Yeah,
can
we'll have it
access
in the
it in
bottom.
any podcast wherever you get your podcast. So yeah.
Amazing, because we'll put all of those links down below in the description of this episode. And we're really excited because June's just around the corner and we could
Yes.
all do with some good content. Feels. We want the feels. We want the good vibes.
Yes.
We need the good vibes because I always tell my clients we're not faking it till we make it, but these genuine, real, amazing stories to be told. And, a lot of people are ashamed about their history story. And I'm like, listen, come into a safe space. Let's work through it. And that doesn't have to be the only story or the
Yeah.
end to their
Yeah.
story. It can be just the beginning.
Yes.
And so we're moving forward, in the tiny room on that new narrative and a positive narrative and a truthful narrative instead of the false and negative or negative script, as you said. So, Norbert, thank you so much for being here. I'm so, so grateful. All the way from Berlin, Germany, I tell you, just going to throw that in there.
Thank you so much, Lucinda, for having me, and thank you everyone for joining us in this conversation.
Yeah, so everybody who's watching, please subscribe, please like, please click on the notification button so that you are aware of new content coming out on our channel. Please get this out there because there's so many entrepreneurs, so many business owners, many men in your world. who need to hear this. And yeah, I'm just so grateful that you've spent your time with us. And we are sending our love from the tiny room from Berlin, Germany. Go check out Norbert's platforms. All the links will be in the description. But we love you guys, and just reach out, be vulnerable, show your strength. You have it. And yeah, we just love you. So chat to you all soon. Bye.